Have you ever wondered if sharing too much with your kids might actually complicate your relationship instead of strengthening it? As parents, we carry a lifetime of lessons, memories, and secrets, each one a thread in the fabric of our experiences. Naturally, we want to pass on this wisdom, to prepare our children for life's twists and turns. But what if, in our eagerness to share, we unintentionally burden them, or even ourselves? Today, we'll explore why certain financial details are better left unsaid, and how maintaining some privacy can protect both your independence and your family's harmony. Before we continue, friends, I kindly ask you to subscribe to my channel. It only takes a second for you, but for me, it's an extra motivation to keep creating videos. I'd also really appreciate a comment. Thank you for your support, and now, let's continue with the story. Let me tell you a story. Karen, a retired schoolteacher from Ohio, had spent decades building a modest nest egg. She believed in the value of hard work and had always been a careful planner. One evening, over dinner with her adult daughter, Karen casually mentioned her savings. She thought it would reassure her daughter that she was financially secure, capable of taking care of herself. "You don't have to worry about me," Karen said with a warm smile. Her tone was light, almost playful, as though the conversation were just a passing comment. But what started as a moment of connection soon took a different turn. At first, her daughter's reaction was exactly what Karen had hoped for. "That's amazing, Mom," she said, her eyes lighting up with pride. "You've done so well for yourself." Karen felt a wave of relief and happiness. This was her chance to show her daughter that, after years of hard work and sacrifices, she had built a solid foundation for her later years. For a while, it seemed like everything was as it should be. But slowly, subtly, the nature of their conversations began to shift. What once felt like casual chats turned into deeper, more probing questions. Her daughter began asking about specific amounts, the types of accounts Karen used, and even how she managed her monthly expenses. Initially, Karen didn't think much of it. After all, her daughter was just being curious, right? But then came the suggestions. "Mom, have you considered investing in a mutual fund? I know someone who could help," her daughter said one afternoon. Another time it was, "You could get a better return if you moved your money here." Each comment, though seemingly harmless, carried an unspoken expectation that Karen should act. Karen's unease grew, but she brushed it aside, reminding herself that her daughter only had her best interests at heart. That changed one evening when her daughter mentioned her own financial struggles. "You know, the boys' tuition has been so hard to keep up with. Sometimes I just don't know how we'll manage," she said, her voice tinged with frustration. Karen listened quietly, but inside, she felt a pang of guilt. Was her success selfish in the face of her daughter's challenges? Should she be doing more to help? The next time they met, her daughter's tone was more direct. "Mom, you've worked so hard your whole life. Don't you think it's time to use some of that money to help the family? Maybe set up a fund for the grandkids or something." Karen felt cornered. She had always wanted to support her family, but this felt different. The independence she had spent her life building was no longer hers to enjoy. It was now a resource being managed by someone else, at least in spirit. Karen's story isn't unique. Across the country, parents like her are discovering that financial transparency can lead to unintended consequences. Take the case of Tom and Nancy, a retired couple from Florida. After selling their family home, they decided to downsize and use the proceeds to travel. Excited about their plans, they shared the details with their two grown sons. "We're finally going to see Europe," Nancy said, her voice bubbling with excitement. The reaction wasn't what she expected. Their eldest son, Mark, who had recently started his own business, grew quiet. "Must be nice to have that kind of money," he said, his tone flat. The word stung, but Nancy brushed them off as a passing comment. The following week, however, Mark called, suggesting they consider lending him part of the sale proceeds as a low-interest loan. "It'll be a win-win," he assured them. Tom and Nancy felt torn. Helping their son felt like the right thing to do, but it would mean postponing their long-awaited trip. When they hesitated, Mark's frustration became evident. "You don't understand how hard it is for me right now," he said during one heated conversation. "You're in a position to help, but instead, you're thinking about vacations." The guilt was overwhelming. In the end, Tom and Nancy decided against a loan, but the damage was done. Their relationship with Mark became strained, each interaction overshadowed by unspoken resentment. This is the reality of oversharing. What begins as an act of trust can spiral into a source of tension. Karen eventually decided to draw a line. She stopped discussing her finances with her daughter, sharing only the bare essentials when absolutely necessary. It wasn't an easy decision. She worried her daughter might misinterpret her silence as a lack of trust. But over time, Karen found peace in knowing she was protecting not only her independence, but also the balance of their relationship. Boundaries, as difficult as they can be to establish, are vital for maintaining harmony. Tom and Nancy learned this too, though it took months of careful conversation to rebuild the trust with their son. They realized that while honesty is important, so is discretion. Not every detail needs to be shared, and not every question deserves an answer. So, what's the takeaway? Sharing our financial details with our children may feel like an act of love and transparency, but it can have unintended consequences. Money, after all, isn't just about numbers. It's about freedom, choices, and the ability to live life on our own terms. By keeping some things private, we protect not only our own independence, but also the relationships we hold dear. Have you ever found yourself in a similar situation? Maybe you've shared something personal, only to realize it changed the dynamics of your relationship. Or perhaps you've kept a secret, knowing it was the best way to preserve harmony. In the next part of this journey, we'll explore how boundaries can actually bring families closer together. Because sometimes the greatest act of love is knowing when to say less. Stay with me. You won't want to miss this. It's fascinating how something as tangible as money can weave its way into the intangible threads of love, trust, and even control within a family. What begins as an act of openness can quickly become a source of tension, creating ripple effects no one saw coming. Karen's experience and the unexpected shift in her relationship with her daughter isn't an isolated story. And Tom and Nancy's struggles to balance their dreams with their son's expectations highlight a common, yet often unspoken reality. When it comes to family and finances, transparency doesn't always lead to harmony. Martha's story is another poignant example. After losing her husband, she became the pillar of her family, not just emotionally but financially. Her meticulous budgeting and planning were her way of proving to herself and her children that she could navigate life's challenges on her own. So, when her youngest daughter, Emily, came to her with questions about managing money, Martha felt a swell of pride. Sitting together at the kitchen table, she eagerly shared her methods, showing Emily her ledger and explaining how she balanced her expenses. It was a moment of connection, one that Martha believed would strengthen their bond. For a while, it seemed to work. Emily was impressed, even calling her mom a financial wizard. But the dynamic shifted as Emily's curiosity turned into a quiet sense of entitlement. Her casual questions, "Why not cut back on dining out?" soon became pointed suggestions. "Mom, do you really need that subscription to the theater? It's so expensive." Martha began to feel her autonomy eroding. Decisions she once made with confidence were now met with scrutiny, as though she needed her daughter's approval. It wasn't malicious. Emily genuinely believed she was helping. But for Martha, it felt like a slow, subtle loss of control over her own life. Then came the day Martha overheard Emily discussing her budget with her siblings. "Mom's still donating a lot to that charity," Emily said. "I think she should scale back and save more for emergencies." Martha was stunned. Her personal choices, once private and empowering, were now the subject of family debate. What had started as a gesture of openness had spiraled into an uncomfortable intrusion. Paul's story, though different, reflects the same underlying challenge. After decades as an electrician, Paul retired with a modest but hard-earned nest egg. When his eldest son, Todd, approached him with an idea for a small business, Paul was eager to support him. He saw it as a chance to invest not just money but belief in his son's potential. Paul shared his financial situation in detail, outlining what he could afford to lend. Todd's excitement was palpable, and for a moment, Paul felt he'd done something deeply meaningful. But the business struggled, and Todd's enthusiasm gave way to desperation. He began asking for additional funds, framing his requests as temporary solutions. "Just one more loan, Dad," he'd say. "I'll pay it back as soon as things pick up." Meanwhile, Paul's younger son, Brian, grew resentful. "It feels like Todd gets everything handed to him," Brian said one evening. "What about me? Don't I deserve the same support?" Paul found himself caught between his sons, his initial act of generosity now a source of division and frustration. The emotional toll was immense. Paul began avoiding Todd's calls, dreading the inevitable request for help. His once joyful family dinners became tense, with unspoken resentment hanging in the air. "I thought I was doing the right thing," Paul admitted. "But instead, I created a situation where no one was truly happy." These stories underscore an important truth. Financial transparency, while well-intentioned, can lead to unintended consequences. It's not just about the money. It's about the expectations and emotions tied to it. Sharing too much can blur the lines between support and control, creating dynamics that strain even the strongest relationships. So, what kind of financial information is better kept private? It's not about secrecy for secrecy's sake. It's about preserving boundaries that protect everyone involved. For instance, details about your retirement savings or investment strategies might not need to be shared unless you're seeking specific advice. Similarly, discussing discretionary spending, like travel plans or personal indulgences, can sometimes invite judgment or unsolicited opinions. Even something as simple as your monthly budget can shift the balance of a relationship if it becomes a point of contention. Martha eventually recognized this. She decided to reclaim her financial independence by setting clear boundaries. "I told Emily that while I appreciated her interest, my finances were my responsibility," she said. It wasn't an easy conversation. Emily initially felt shut out, but over time, she came to respect her mother's decision. Their relationship grew stronger, built on mutual respect rather than unspoken expectations. For Paul, the journey was more complicated. After months of tension, he called a family meeting. "I told my sons I loved them, but I couldn't continue this pattern," he said. "I needed them to see me as their father, not their financier." It was a painful conversation, but it marked a turning point. Todd began to take more responsibility for his business, and Brian found renewed appreciation for his father's efforts to treat his children fairly. These stories remind us that boundaries aren't barriers, they're bridges. They allow us to maintain our independence while fostering healthier, more balanced relationships. They teach us that love doesn't mean saying yes to everything. Sometimes, the greatest gift we can give is the ability to stand on our own and to let others do the same. Have you ever struggled with finding the right balance in your relationships? Perhaps you felt the weight of wanting to help, only to realize it came at a personal cost. Or maybe you've experienced the opposite, feeling hesitant to ask for support, worried it might come with strings attached. Whatever your experience, know this: setting boundaries isn't a sign of selfishness. It's a reflection of wisdom and care, both for yourself and for those you love. In the next part, we'll delve deeper into the concept of financial independence, not just as a practical necessity, but as a cornerstone of dignity and freedom. Because sometimes the most profound lessons come not from what we give, but from what we choose to preserve. Stay with me. You won't want to miss this. Financial independence isn't just a number in a bank account or a stack of papers in a filing cabinet. It's a quiet reassurance, a sense of stability that allows us to navigate life's uncertainties with confidence. For many parents, it's the result of years, sometimes decades, of careful planning, sacrifice, and diligence. But as Ruth discovered, independence can feel fragile when family dynamics complicate the picture. Ruth, a retired nurse from Pennsylvania, had spent her entire career making careful decisions to secure her future. Her savings were not just numbers. They represented her hard work, her resilience, and her plan to live on her terms. When her younger son, Greg, faced with a failing startup, came to her for help, she didn't hesitate. Lending him money felt natural, even necessary. What else was I saving for if not my family, she reasoned. She wanted Greg to know she believed in him, that she had faith in his dreams. At first, it seemed like a beautiful moment of trust and connection. Greg was grateful, promising to repay her as soon as his business recovered. But as time passed, their conversations about the loan grew strained. Ruth hesitated to bring it up, afraid of coming across as unkind. When she finally mentioned it, Greg's tone shifted. "I'm doing my best, Mom. Can't you trust me?" he said, his voice tinged with frustration. Ruth felt a pang of guilt, but also a flicker of unease. The loan was no longer just about money. It had become a silent wedge in their relationship. To make matters worse, Ruth's older son, Daniel, learned about the loan through a passing comment at a family gathering. His response was immediate and sharp. "Why didn't you tell me? Don't you trust me enough to share these things?" Ruth found herself at the center of an unintended conflict. Her decision to help one son had inadvertently hurt the other, and her sense of independence, something she had guarded for years, felt compromised. It wasn't just about the money, Ruth reflected later. It was about how quickly my decisions seemed to slip out of my hands. James and Linda, a retired couple from Texas, faced a different challenge, but one that carried a similar emotional weight. After downsizing their home, they decided to use the proceeds to fulfill a lifelong dream of traveling the world. They pictured themselves walking along the cobblestone streets of Paris, standing in awe at the Grand Canyon, and finally taking the cruise they had talked about for years. They shared their plans with their daughter Michelle, hoping for excitement and encouragement. But instead, they were met with skepticism. "That's a lot of money to spend on vacations," Michelle said during dinner one evening. Her words were framed as concern, but they lingered like a quiet judgment. Over the next few weeks, Michelle began offering unsolicited advice about how James and Linda could better allocate their funds. "Why not invest it for the grandkids' future?" she suggested. "You don't want to run out of money when you're older." James, who had always prided himself on his careful planning, felt deflated. Linda, usually the peacemaker, found herself growing resentful. Their dream, once a source of joy and excitement, now felt overshadowed by Michelle's disapproval. "It wasn't just about the trips," Linda said. "It was about the freedom to live our lives the way we had always imagined. Not all stories about family and finances end in tension, though. Sometimes, open communication and mutual respect lead to outcomes that strengthen relationships rather than strain them." Take the example of the Bennetts, a family from Colorado. Sarah and David Bennett, both in their 60s, decided to involve their adult children in a discussion about their estate planning. It wasn't an easy conversation to start, but they approached it with transparency and a clear purpose. "We wanted them to understand our goals and feel included," Sarah explained. The Bennetts shared their financial plans, including their intention to leave a portion of their estate to charity, a decision deeply rooted in their values. Their children listened with curiosity and respect, asking thoughtful questions. By the end of the discussion, everyone felt more connected. "It wasn't just about the money," David said. "It was about sharing our values and showing them what mattered most to us." This story offers an important counterbalance. It shows that when handled with care, financial discussions can strengthen bonds and provide valuable lessons. The Bennett's approach worked because they set clear boundaries, framed the conversation around their principles, and respected their children's perspectives without relinquishing control. Teaching children financial responsibility starts long before these complex conversations. It begins with small, consistent lessons, like encouraging saving from a young age, discussing the value of money in everyday decisions, and modeling good financial habits. These lessons lay the foundation for independence, both for parents and their children. They foster a sense of accountability that can prevent misunderstandings and conflicts later in life. For Ruth, finding balance meant having a direct, heartfelt conversation with both Greg and Daniel. She explained her intentions, acknowledged her missteps, and clarified her boundaries moving forward. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary, she said. I had to protect my relationship with both of them and my own peace of mind. James and Linda, meanwhile, decided to gently but firmly redirect their conversations with Michelle. They shared their excitement about their travels without delving into financial specifics. This is our time to live, James told her. We've planned for this, and we hope you can be happy for us. Over time, Michelle learned to respect their choices, and the strain began to lift. These stories remind us that financial independence isn't just about managing money. It's about managing relationships, emotions, and expectations. It's about setting boundaries that allow us to live authentically while teaching our children the value of self-reliance. And it's about knowing that sometimes the greatest gift we can give is not what we share, but what we choose to keep. Have you ever experienced a moment where you felt torn between openness and boundaries? Perhaps you've had to navigate the complexities of family dynamics, balancing love with the need to preserve your independence. In the next part, we'll explore how financial independence shapes not just our lives, but the legacies we leave behind. Because sometimes, the strongest connections are built on mutual respect and the quiet wisdom of knowing when to say less. Stay with me. You won't want to miss this. Independence is more than a privilege. It's a necessity for living a fulfilling life. It's the foundation of self-respect, the quiet assurance that your choices are yours to make, shaped by your values and experiences. But as we age, maintaining that independence becomes a more delicate balance, particularly within the intricate dynamics of family relationships. Evelyn's story is a poignant reminder of this. Her daughters, Karen and Lisa, loved her deeply, but their concerns sometimes came across as doubt, challenging her ability to make her own decisions. Evelyn's plan to embark on a cross-country road trip wasn't just about seeing new places. It was about rediscovering her sense of freedom, reconnecting with the adventurous spirit she had nurtured in her youth. When Karen expressed her fears about safety and Lisa questioned the costs, Evelyn felt a sting of frustration. She had spent decades raising her daughters, teaching them to stand on their own, and now it seemed they were struggling to let her do the same. It wasn't that I didn't appreciate their love, Evelyn said. I just wanted them to understand that I still had dreams of my own. The tension wasn't resolved overnight. Evelyn had to find the courage to explain her perspective, and Karen and Lisa had to confront their own fears. But through open, honest conversations, they reached a place of understanding. Evelyn's daughters learned that supporting her didn't mean controlling her choices. It meant trusting her to know what was best for herself. And for Evelyn, asserting her independence became a reminder of the strength that had carried her through so much of her life. Evelyn's story flows naturally into that of George and Anita, whose proactive approach to maintaining independence offers a different but equally powerful lesson. They knew that their son Michael had a protective streak. He'd always been the type to worry about their well-being, even as a child. Anticipating potential friction, George and Anita decided to have a candid conversation with him about their plans, finances, and boundaries. They didn't wait for misunderstandings to arise. They addressed them before they could take root. Sitting at the kitchen table, they spoke openly about their vision for the future, emphasizing that while they appreciated Michael's concern, they were fully capable of managing their lives. It wasn't about shutting him out, Anita explained. It was about inviting him into the conversation in a way that respected our independence. By involving Michael in their plans without relinquishing control, George and Anita created an environment of mutual respect. The trust that grew from that conversation strengthened their relationship, proving that boundaries, when set with love, can bring families closer together. Sometimes, Maintaining independence means navigating even more nuanced situations. Consider Helen, a retired art teacher from Oregon, whose financial independence was called into question not by her children, but by her sister, Margaret. Helen had always been frugal, saving diligently throughout her career to ensure a comfortable retirement. When Margaret, facing a series of financial difficulties, asked for help, Helen felt torn. She wanted to support her sister, but she also knew that dipping into her savings could jeopardize her own security. Helen decided to offer a solution that balanced compassion with practicality. Instead of providing financial support outright, she helped Margaret create a budget and explore ways to reduce expenses. It was hard at first, Helen admitted. Margaret felt hurt that I didn't just write her a check. But over time, she realized that I was trying to help her stand on her own 2 feet. Their relationship, once strained, grew stronger as they worked together to solve the problem. For Helen, the experience reinforced the importance of setting boundaries, even with those we hold closest. Boundaries don't just preserve independence. They teach valuable lessons about responsibility and self-reliance. These lessons often start at home, in the seemingly small moments that shape a child's understanding of money. Imagine a family sitting down together to plan their monthly grocery budget. The parents explain the importance of prioritizing essentials, comparing prices, and finding value in every dollar spent. They involve the children by giving them small tasks. Perhaps one child compares the cost of different brands, while another calculates the total. These moments, though simple, lay the groundwork for financial literacy and foster a sense of ownership. For younger children, a weekly allowance can serve as a teaching tool. Parents might encourage them to divide their money into categories: saving, spending, and giving. If you save a little each week, they might say, you'll have enough for something really special later. This hands-on approach helps children see the value of patience and planning, skills that will serve them well throughout their lives. For teenagers, discussions can become more complex, covering topics like credit cards, interest rates, and the importance of building good credit. By involving them in real-life decisions, such as helping to research the best car insurance rates, parents can prepare them for the responsibilities of adulthood. George and Anita embraced this philosophy, using their conversations with Michael not just to clarify their own boundaries, but to model good financial habits. We wanted him to see that independence isn't just something you achieve. It's something you maintain through thoughtful decisions, George said. That message resonated deeply, leaving Michael with a newfound appreciation for his parents' wisdom. As Evelyn, Helen, and George and Anita's stories show, independence is a multifaceted concept. It's about having the freedom to pursue your dreams, the strength to set boundaries, and the wisdom to teach those values to the next generation. It's about recognizing that love and respect are most powerful when they allow room for individuality. Have you ever faced a moment when your independence felt challenged, or when you had to navigate the fine line between supporting someone and enabling them? Perhaps you've experienced the joy of teaching a loved one a lesson in self-reliance, or the relief of asserting your own boundaries. Whatever your journey, these experiences shape not only your life, but the legacy you leave behind. As we move forward, let's explore how these moments, big and small, contribute to that legacy, because sometimes the most lasting lessons aren't in what we do for others, but in what we empower them to do for themselves. Stay with me. You won't want to miss this. As we bring this journey to a close, one message rises above all others. Independence is more than a milestone. It's a lifelong pursuit, one that shapes not just the way we live, but the legacy we leave. It's built on years of hard work, decisions that weren't always easy, and a commitment to staying true to yourself, even when others don't fully understand. Evelyn, George, and Anita, and Helen each remind us that independence isn't just about financial stability. It's about making choices that reflect your values, your dreams, and your boundaries. Evelyn's road trip was more than just a chance to see the country. It was her way of reclaiming the adventurous spirit she had nurtured in her youth. Picture her, standing beside her packed car on the morning she left, a map in hand and a smile of quiet determination on her face. It wasn't just about the destinations she would visit. It was about proving to herself and to her daughters that independence doesn't fade with time. Karen and Lisa eventually came to understand this. On Evelyn's first night away, they called her together, their voices a mix of excitement and relief. "We just wanted to hear about your day," Lisa said. That simple gesture showed Evelyn that their love was rooted not in control, but in connection. George and Anita, with their candid conversation with Michael, set a powerful example of what mutual respect looks like in a family. After their discussion, Michael began calling them not with questions about their plans, but to share updates on his own life. "It was like a shift in our relationship," Anita said. "We weren't just his parents anymore. We were partners in this new stage of life." That evolution, built on trust and clear boundaries, became a source of pride for all of them. And years later, when Michael found himself making decisions for his own family, he often thought back to the way his parents had handled that conversation, using it as a guide. Helen's story carries a different kind of lesson, one about the strength it takes to say no, even to someone you love. After helping Margaret create a budget, Helen saw her sister grow in ways she hadn't expected. Margaret started picking up freelance work, finding small ways to rebuild her confidence. "I didn't just give her money," Helen reflected. "I gave her the chance to find her own way forward." That act of tough love didn't just preserve Helen's independence. It strengthened their bond, showing that support doesn't always mean sacrifice. Independence has a ripple effect, touching the lives of those around us in ways we often don't anticipate. Take the story of Mark and his grandmother, Louise. Louise, a widow who had lived modestly her entire life, was known for her quiet wisdom. When Mark was a teenager, Louise sat him down and explained how she managed her finances, how she stretched a dollar, planned for unexpected expenses, and always saved for the future. Decades later, Mark, now a financial planner, often cites that conversation as the turning point in his understanding of money. "She taught me that independence is about more than having enough. It's about making choices that keep you free," he said. Louise's quiet example became the foundation for Mark's career and the way he approached his own family's financial planning. These stories remind us that the decisions we make about our independence don't just impact us. They shape the lives of those we love. They teach lessons in resilience, in responsibility, and in the importance of staying true to yourself. And they show us that love and independence aren't opposites. They're partners in creating a life that's fulfilling and free. As you reflect on these stories, think about your own journey. Have you ever had to assert your independence in the face of doubt or concern? Maybe you've had to set boundaries with someone you love or learned a valuable lesson from someone who did. Whatever your experience, we want to hear from you. Share your story in the comments, because your voice adds to the collective wisdom we're building here. If this video resonated with you, consider subscribing to our channel. It's a small step, but one that helps us continue to create meaningful content about the challenges and joys of living a life that's true to yourself. And if you know someone who might benefit from these stories, share this video with them. Together, we can start a conversation that empowers us all. Your journey isn't over. Whether you're planning your next adventure, setting new boundaries, or teaching the next generation what it means to live authentically, remember, it's never too late to rewrite your story. And as we explore these topics in future videos, we hope you'll join us again, because life is a journey and the best chapters are still ahead.